Welcome back to Late Night. We're here with President Joe Biden. You mentioned some classified material, some documents recently leaked, some classified documents. And this isn't a gotcha show, but I do want to ask about it, that says you are currently 81 years old.
Who the hell told you that?
Yeah.
That's classified.
That's classified. All jokes aside, according to recent polling, this is a real concern for American voters. How do you address that concern going forward as you come up to the 2024 election?
Well, a couple things. Number one, you got to take a look at the other guy. He's about as old as I am, but he can't remember his wife's name.
Yeah.
And number one. Number two, it's about how old your ideas are. Look, I mean, this is a guy who wants to take us back. He wants to take us back on Roe v. Wade. He wants to take us back on a whole range of issues that are 50, 60 years, they've been solid American positions. And I really mean this sincerely. I think it's about the future. And every single thing we've done, I think we've got some good things done. Everything, and they told us we couldn't get them done because things were so divided. And but I think everything we've gotten done, he's just friendly stated he wants to do away with if he gets elected. And I really think his views on where to take America are older than, anyway, I don't want to get going.
You talked about bipartisanship and that you could actually work across the aisle when you ran in 2020. I was one of the people who thought that was maybe a foolish proposition, but you have gotten things done. Infrastructure chips, Inflation Reduction Act, some gun safety. You even got an immigration bill that passed in the Senate but never got taken up in the House. And
Will be.
what would you want to do? What's your 2024 agenda? Because I feel like we live in such crazy times that is one of the things I feel we hear less about.
Look, the 2020 agenda is to finish the job. For example, we're now in a position where we have the strongest economy of any major nation in the world, number one. We've got a way to go yet. Inflation's down, 880,000 manufacturing jobs. You know, we have 14 million new jobs. The unemployment rate is the lowest it's been for the longest time. We're building wealth for people. But we have to do more. First thing I have to do is stop it from being turned around. For example, you talked about the border didn't pass. Well, guess what? We're going to pass that border. It's overwhelmingly supported by Republicans and Democrats in the House and Senate. But because, I don't know this for a fact, but I was told that Trump was picking up the phone, calling the Speaker of the House saying, don't let it pass. Why? Not because he doesn't think it's good, because it will benefit Biden. That's no way to run a country. That's no way to deal. We didn't, even when we had real divisions back when I was a young senator among Democrats and Republicans. That wasn't the way it worked. And look, I think, let me put, this is not your father's Republican Party. They got about 30% of the Republican Party controlling it all. And I think we're going to break it.
One of the things about this is not your father's Republican Party, it must be for somebody who's been doing this as long as you have, you can't get aid for Ukraine passed. And it seemed like for a long time, the American people agreed that Russia was the threat. And all of a sudden now you see a Republican Party that is basically refusing to aid Ukraine in their fight against. It seems like Donald Trump is saying Russia can do whatever they want to NATO countries. Are you shocked?
Like that's what he is saying. He's been saying it all along. He's been saying it when he ran the last time. Look, the idea that any American, think about this. If I told you all there was going to be an American president who said, Putin, come do whatever you want to NATO. If the other guys on our team don't pay up every single cent they promise to pay for, I mean, God, what are we talking about here? What in God's name? How the idea that the president of the United States is inviting Vladimir Putin to invade Western countries? It's bizarre, absolutely bizarre. And it's totally against our interest. And by the way, I've known every major foreign leader for the longest time, and I know all these guys extremely well. They're scared to death what it means for them. For them, what it means if we walk away. Madeleine Albright was right, the former Secretary of State. She said, we are the essential nation. We are the essential nation. We don't have people fighting in those areas, but we're providing the wherewithal for them to be able to protect themselves. And it's just outrageous what he's talking about.
He talked about how he wants to be a dictator on day one, but only day one. You are someone who has dealt with dictators over the years. It does seem as though democracy in vague terms somehow, is not easy for us to grasp. Having dealt with dictators, what do you see in a world where democracy is actually at risk in a way it might be in this election?
The first thing they do, dictators do, is they disregard whatever the rule of the law is. They just disregard it. Here's the guy who says he thinks he can change the Constitution and ignore it. Just ignore portions of the Constitution. Here's the guy who talks about retribution. Here's the guy, look, you have the guys, the thousands of people who stormed the Capitol. They're insurrectionists. 2 cops died. Other people were badly hurt. And what did he say? They got convicted and or they pled guilty. And he said, they're patriots? God, patriots? And he says he's going to forgive them all. Every one of them is going to be released. That's what happens in Eastern European countries. That's not what happens in America. And the idea that he thinks he can do that, the idea he talks about things like, for example, the idea that he said the Congress wants to pass an overwhelmingly a border provision that would allow us to control the border. First bill ever introduced called for that. And here he's saying, no, don't do that because that'll help Biden. Help Biden? It's not about Biden, it's about the United States of America. And look, I don't want to get started. I really don't.
Yeah, I get it.
Democracy is a state. It literally is.
I want to ask about the situation right now in the Middle East. You've forcefully spoken about the horrible events of October 7th and how Hamas is a continuing threat to the safety of the people who live in Israel. You've been trying to negotiate the release of the hostages. At the same time, you've said that the response in Gaza is too much and that the loss of an innocent life in Gaza is just as horrible as the loss of an innocent life in Israel. And yet there have been calls for an immediate ceasefire. You have not supported those calls. Again, you seem like an optimistic person. You believe maybe there's a future for a 2-state solution. But from where I'm sitting, it does seem like there doesn't seem to be any appetite for that right now. Do you see because again, we see every day we see these horrible images out of Gaza. And is there a path forward? Is there a safe future for the people who live there?
There is a path forward with difficulty, but here's the path forward. Look, first of all, the hostages being held must be released. And if we've got at least a principle agreement, there will be a ceasefire while that takes place. Ramadan's coming up, and there's been an agreement by the Israelis that they would not engage in activities during Ramadan as well, in order to give us time to get all the hostages out. That gives us time to begin to move in directions that a lot of Arab countries are prepared to move in. For example, Saudi Arabia is ready to recognize Israel. Jordan, Egypt, there's 6 other states. I've been working with Qatar. And the bottom line is that I think the only way Israel ultimately survives, and I make no bones about it. I get criticized for having said a long time ago, you need not be a Jew to be a Zionist. I'm a Zionist. Were there no Israel, there's not a Jew in the world to be safe. But here's the deal. They also have to take advantage of an opportunity to have peace and security for Israelis and Palestinians who are being used as pawns by Hamas. And so there's a process underway that I think if we get that temporary ceasefire, we're going to be able to move in a direction where we can change the dynamic and not have a 2-state solution immediately, but a process to get to a 2-state solution. A process to guarantee Israel's security and the independence of the Palestinians, but without them being able to, for example, invite in, another country to provide their defenses. There's ways to do this, and I don't have time to go into it now, and in the meantime, there are too many innocent people that are being killed. And Israel has slowed down the attacks in Rafah. They have to, and they've made a commitment to me. They're going to see to it that there's ability to evacuate significant portions of Rafah before they go and take out the remainder of Hamas. But it's a process. And look, Israel has had the overwhelming support of the vast majority of nations. If it keeps this up without this incredibly conservative government they have, and Ben-Gvir and others, I've known every major foreign policy leader in Israel since Golda Meir, they're going to lose support from around the world. And that is not in Israel's interest.
Well, I wish you the best of luck with that because they are really horrifying scenes, and I'm happy to hear you agree with that as well. I do want to close by thanking you for something. When you were here in 2014, you gave me 2 gifts. First, you gave me an Amtrak whistle, and it was 10 years ago. I didn't have kids yet, and I have kids now, and it's their favorite thing, and they blow it all the time, and it's really irritating, so I want to give it back. And
I'm not going to take it back.
we're
going to give
covered
it to
with
your
germs.
kids.
Also, you gave me this this conductor's hat, and this meant the world to me because when I put it on, I realized that you didn't just buy this at a store. You obviously went out of your way. You got my hat size because when I put it on, it was such a perfect fit. And
Let's get moving.
let's get moving. I really want to thank you so much for being here, Mr. President. It means the world to celebrate the anniversary with you. That's President Joe Biden, everybody. We'll be right back with more Late Night.